So we're sitting here watching. Hey man, you want to have some coffee?
Yes, I'm gonna check the crock pot.
Can you fire that up and heat that up, please?
We're live.
Yeah, we're live right now. Yeah, I want to talk about this DMSO idea. So we're looking at DMSO and DMSO being such a good transport because it's absorbed by the skin so completely. And I'm wondering if DMSO would be a good transport agent for cannabinoids. So I'm going to start out this video by talking about that real quick because it was just something that passed over us. How the whole thing got started is Nose brought a tub of shea oil in here. Let's see that, man. Shea butter. Shea butter is from the shea tree in Africa. This particular shea butter is from Ghana. And we were tripping on how, our different ethnicities have our different type of stuff. We use coconut oil for everything, And I didn't even know shea butter existed. I've heard of it, but it wasn't like something that was bought into my realization. In other words, I've heard the term shea butter a million times. I've never seen a tub of it like that. But it took, one of my friends showing up here with a tub of shea butter to get our curiosity going. And now we've just been sitting here for 20 minutes trying to wait for my pain medicine to take effect so we can possibly get into some more music. We got Rip Van Winkle over here taking a nap. That's Vinny Vega. And
Elaborate on what type of butter comes from where you're from.
Coconut oil. It's just different types. Well, we use a lot of bay. You know what bay oil is?
Mm-mm.
Do you know what bay leaves are? I know your grandmother cooked with some bay leaves because we're Africans and Ricans are very much from this. It's a Caribbean spice. And Puerto Ricans use it for a lot. We put it in our food. There's always a bay leaf. We always throw a bay leaf in our rice and stuff. And they collect bay leaves and they extract the oil and they use it. And it's very simple. So it's really funny. Here we are talking about it. They put bay oil in alcohol, and there's actually a special brand called Alcoholado. It's called Lighthouse or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Lighthouse brand. It's Alcoholado, and what it is it's Alcoholado with menthol and bay leaves and wintergreen and stuff like that. The Japanese have it too. Japanese have something called what is it called? I'll remember it. But my computer doesn't work that well while I'm under all these heavy pain suppressants, pain medications. But so anyway, I'm talking about DMSO, and we're sitting here going, okay, so you take THC oil and you rub it on something. Let's say we're trying to get it to a skin cancer tumor, or trying to get it to a joint that you have trouble with or something like that. So basically the main thing is to experiment with cannabis and using a better delivery system, because for instance, bay oil wasn't something that was easily absorbed through the skin. So you mix it with alcohol. Alcohol has a little bit more absorption. Can you imagine if you add bay oil to DMSO? Use DMSO as the solvent instead of alcohol, and then you put the bay oil in the DMSO, and DMSO has such a rapid evaporation rate, that you got to rub it in and it evaporates out of the skin, but it already delivers whatever you're trying to deliver in there. So I would like to know, and that's what I'm returning to, is if for some reason If you take raw cannabis or you take the oil from raw cannabis, you don't sit there and heat activate the THC oil. If you were to take raw cannabis and squeeze it and make some type of a cold press, in other words, non-activated THC, I wonder if there could be some type of a arthritic compound to use and deliver, because DMSO is already good for arthritis.
Right.
So if you could use that cold pressed cannabis, butter or whatever you want to call it, and you dissolve it in a solvent like DMSO, and then you rub it on the skin. DMSO is going to absorb into the skin so quickly, So there you have another type of tincture. So one of these days, when we're in a place where it's legal, maybe they'll cut us loose in a laboratory somewhere where I can do some really interesting stuff and make you guys some holistic tinctures and stuff to rub on. So anyway,
Right.
So that's one thing I was wondering about. The other thing one of the main reasons I was going to make a video today, I'm just making them like 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
But like I wanted, basically we were going to be discussing why cannabis seems like it's still so scary to enough people in society that they would be willing to put someone away like this, like me.
Right.
Even given the facts of the case, it's like, no, the guy's not selling weed. He's not, he's not affecting anybody else. There's no pounds of weed flying out of there. No money being made whatsoever. I mean, people, if you only know how broke we were and how we're broke, we're even more broke now. I mean, 25 years of accomplishment basically got all spent out with my grandparents and stuff like that. So anyway, getting to the issue, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but what will happen to my medical health now? After close to 20 long years of struggling and suffering, only to find myself in this situation where I'm facing 15 years in prison, and I mean, that's why I want to reach out to people and talk with them about what's happening and hopefully get people to stand up with me and just sort of come to bat, like, in other words, support me vocally and hopefully talk some sense into the judicial arm, here. And I respect them a lot, so it's a heavy thing, man. I'm telling you, I wake up facing this every morning, and it's not a very comfortable thing, because it's not my thing. I've never been one of those people to do shit where I would expect to go to jail. It's not the way I was raised, I've had a lot of stuff happen in my life where I've been mixed up with the law and stuff, but I mean, it was always worked out because there's never been one time where I've been arrested where they could go, hey, oh yeah, this guy's, he's had intended to break the law or something like that. It's always over a misunderstanding or something, or some jerk trying to use the law as leverage against somebody that they don't like. That's happened to me several times where some jerk, tries to use the law to as a vendetta, which is probably what happened in this case. More than likely somebody turned me in because there's no way. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But there's no way that they can ever say, oh yeah, he sold me weed. There's no way, man. I defy them to find any. They'll never. It doesn't exist. So what I'm, basically the whole thing is I'm worried about my medical future primarily right now. And the reason I'm reaching out to people about what's happening is because I want to try to bring home how important it is for society to be fair to good people who are ill and sick and suffering or otherwise on the good side of society, who do good for society, and about who we serve in society. Are we serving ourselves? Are we greedy? Are we taking advantage of other people? Are we predating on people? You know, are we predators making our living off of other people? Or, you know, how can we get to and resolve the obstacles preventing the progress with regard to this prohibition, such as, well, specifically medical cannabis? You know, it's urgent for people to connect with each other, and especially those of us who are in this situation regarding medical cannabis. I mean, we're not a bunch of dumb stoners. They would love you to think that there's just this image portrayal that they want you to think that we're just a bunch of idiots sitting around getting stoned. When I was in the fire service and when I was in business, I never touched cannabis for over 25 years. Never touched it. Never went near it. Didn't even know anybody who smoked it. And you got to understand, you know, this is coming from a guy who grew up in California in his formative years. Thanks, Dave. My dad was a marijuana grower. You know, my dad grew cannabis, and I stayed away from him because of it.
I have to get milk here.
That's okay. Are you sit down, or are you getting yours?
Yes.
Here, could you take this upstairs with you?
I have to go to the bathroom real quick.
Oh, go ahead, man. Go, run.
I'll wait.
Are you going upstairs to do it? Thanks, man.
No Ronnie Baker's dancing.
So it is so funny, man. The Great White Hope. So the main thing that I'm like going to preach here before we even get too far into it is like, basically I want to resolve the issue, specifically this medical cannabis thing, is how urgent it is to connect with people, for people to connect with each other. Like, I don't care anymore about these political organizations that all they do is they beg people for money. They want people to send them money. Here, buy our stickers, buy our t-shirts. Every dollar you spend is going to help the issue. Bullshit. All it does is like paying the attorneys. All it does is allow political lobbyist organizations to buy more advertising. Advertising doesn't change laws. People change laws. People getting together, and like a bunch of people agreeing to something and going after something and becoming active as an advocate. Look at this. Is that what you're laughing about? I'm laughing my ass off over here. We're trying to make a video over here, and Vinny's back there snoring his ass off. We'll just have to do this all over again, man. He's fucking snoring his ass off while we're trying to make a video over here, man. It's so funny. Oh, shit, man. Well, anyway, what we're trying to say is maybe enough good information still hasn't made it around to everybody yet. And that's why a lot of the older crowd from, you know, the old school crowds, the more establishment crowd, they just still think that people who use cannabis are dumb stoners. That, you know, that's the image portrayal. And that some of these people want you to think that there's just a bunch of idiots. That's the only people that use cannabis. But 60% of the population is for legislation. And let's say out of that, look, I don't really know for sure, but let's say out of that 60% that are for it, let's say that 30% of it are users. Do you think the 30% of the population that is for legislation are a bunch of idiots running around stoned and crashing into stuff? No, man, no, that's not the way it works. See, we've got to use our heads here more. And first of all, we have to stop feeding the political machine. That's just my opinion. You know, I just think we should stop feeding the political machine. Let's at least before we start dumping money into politics to change this stuff, let's just find the politicians that are rational, like Alan Peake is one of them. I'm sorry, but I like the guy so far, and I want to talk more about him, and I'm going to get him to talk on camera. And then basically what we need to do is try to get good information around. In other words, if we first make people understand the campaign of suppression that's been happening for 80 years, Reefer Madness, all, you know, the Enslinger, and then we're here to help you understand that 80-year campaign of misinformation and the concept and the indication of medical cannabis, the myriad benefits, the potential for the future, well, then, you know, I think more people will turn around. So I'm a non-political advocate, and I'm only concerned with the truth and the facts. So basically where it lies with me is how our illnesses and struggles will affect those around us. You know, when you're in chronic pain, your illness and your life affects everybody around you who loves you. And then if you're like me, like you were left alone for several years, alone raising a kid, and the isolation and the hopelessness, man, that can bring in, you know, that I understand why people kill themselves. I was there. It was a dark, dark place. So we need to talk about that sometimes too. So I'm going to stop this video, and we're going to do the same video again, but it's going to be out there for you to see. Maybe I'll be able to use it. Maybe I won't. So this is funny, man.